culture. And I think the work itself doesn't really take sides. I think that's what makes, in my mind, the most effective. I wanted to talk a little bit about Kristen herself. She couldn't make it and did send condolences as far as not being able to. I know she really, really wanted to come, and it was disappointing that she couldn't, but that was unfortunately the case. Just to give you some background on her as an individual, she is a full professor at Albright College, and she is a painting and printmaking major and professor. She's classically trained, and she got her bachelor's at Syracuse in New York. She's originally from Rochester, New York. She got her master's at Clemson. Just to give you an idea of her experience and some of her shows, she's had 34 solo and two-person shows. She's had over 150 group exhibitions, and she's had shows in major cities across the world, including London, Toronto, Beijing, Chicago, New York City, Philadelphia, Atlanta, and Charlotte. So she comes with a wealth of experience, and she's lived in many different places too. I met Kristen when we were teaching at Mississippi State down south. Some of you SEC fans might know Mississippi State, big rival of Florida. But we met there, and there was a lot of interesting juxtapositions happening between the culture and I think her sort of, and both of our sort of northern upbringings and a southern upbringing. And I think some of the work speaks to that. The materials that she used for the target pieces, which are these paper pieces on the wall, just to kind of give you some background, they're actually targets, you know, from that you would see at a gun range, and there's found papers on them, placed on them, and then it's worked into with what's called oil bar. It's oil paint in a bar that you can draw with, and also other drawing media. And then the pieces around the perimeter, the small works, those are what's called encaustic, which is, anybody know what encaustic is? I bet some people do. Okay. It's wax. It's paraffin wax. So it's a combination of paraffin wax and oil paint and other drawing media. I think the thing that's interesting too about the works is the decorative qualities in them. Like I was saying before, there is some confrontational elements. You know, there's guns in them, and then there's also some more mundane elements like bananas. There's a cake. There's objects from history. But they have a real beautiful, I think, quality to them in terms of the paint, but also in terms of the surface itself. And if you look at them, you really look at them, get into them, they're really rich and dense and very, you just want to like kind of eat them or touch them, you know, at least I do. Maybe I have a problem, but many people would probably attest to that, so it's not unusual. But I'll admit that. So, but I like it. I mean, I think it's got a really attractive quality. So what the work tries to do, also in terms of its scale, it kind of pulls you in, because right from a distance you can't really see what's going on. So you have to get closer to the work in order to really address what it's about. And that process of kind of pulling you in creates intimacy. And after I get done talking, you guys can walk around and look at it and sort of experience it. And maybe you'll see this, maybe you won't. But when you are close, you're the only person that's there. You're the only person that's in that space with that work. And that level of intimacy and connection, something happens, hopefully, if the work is successful, happens to you as a viewer, and you begin to sort of feel what the work is about. The work is not about logic, really. There's not a message that's overt. It's not, like I said, trying to kind of persuade you to think one way or another. It's an emotional message, a message that you're supposed to feel, and you're supposed to get to an emotional connection with the work. And that's kind of why the work is small. It has to be, if it's emotional in some ways, I think it has to be small in order to get you close enough and into it enough to really feel what the work's about. Now the target pieces, just to touch on that a little bit, there's a tradition there, and there's some relevance to these as well, but there's a tradition of flattening out the space, and do another quiz. Anybody know what was the first movement for art to flatten out space? Cubism. Anybody familiar with Cubism? So if you think about art in terms of history, prior to Cubism, it was a window. You know, did you ever see a painting? You go to a gallery or museum, hopefully some of you have been to a gallery or museum. You go and you see the work. Pre-Cubism, it was a window into a world. And that window was realism. It was realistic in some way. You're supposed to feel that there's a space there. You look at it, you see trees farther away, you see trees closer up. It kind of gives you the idea that there's perspective and that you're going into the space. Well, Cubism, just to kind of throw that out, just so you understand the context, Cubism flattened out that space, and it took the painting and art making from this idea of a window going in to an object. So this is a flat surface. It's meant to be viewed as a flat surface, and what that does in terms of the visuals is it removes the illusion, it begins to remove the illusion that this is a landscape or this is a portrait in space. And it starts to make you look at the work like it's paint, like it's a surface, like it's shapes, like it's form and visual language. And that's significant. And she's buying into that tradition in a way. She's trying to embrace that tradition and push that tradition to make something decorative like the smaller works, and to also make something that can maybe challenge you. The idea of a found paper and that inclusion of found paper is important because it had a purpose prior to being on that wall. And the piece itself, the context of that piece, that target, has a purpose too, right? And that purpose is sort of being undone. We don't look at it like, okay, I'm gonna, I'm at the, if you go to the gun range, I'm at the gun range and I'm gonna shoot this form. It's removing that, it's stripping it away, but it's still kind of keeping it present so that you're aware. And I think it's challenging you to sort of see this object that has function and look at it in a different way. What does this thing do? What's the significance of the target? And what is it really? I mean, it's a human form, right? So you're shooting at a human form, and but like I was saying in the small pieces, it's so decorative and the surface is so interesting to look at that you kind of forget all that. And I think that's where you start to sort of look at the work in something beyond what its original purpose was. The one piece, there's a piece called Woman, which is on the card. It's the second over from the left. And I like that piece especially, and I'm really glad that we chose to include that in the press release. And I think it's even more topical now in terms of what happened. The gun target's shooting back. So it's a female form that's shooting back. And I think there's an interesting play there in terms of, because you see the target as more of a masculine form. I don't see it as a feminine form. It doesn't have curves. It's not silhouetted in this kind of shapely manner. It's a very linear, long form. And she's taken it and made it into something more feminine. And it's an interesting idea. So what if the gun target at the range was a feminine form? What would that be? Would that be disturbing to some of you? Would that be difficult to do? I mean, those of you that are female, you're going to have a different opinion of that than those of you that are male. And I think the very nature of choosing the target as a context to make art on is it kind of plays with that, and it pushes our sensibilities when it comes to things that, it's a little piece of paper, it's mundane, it's actually such a trashy piece of paper that nobody cares what happens to it. They just shoot it off, throw it away, let's put up another one, let's do it again. It has there's no reason for permanence in that piece of paper. And that also has weight and significance, because the artist is taking something that one would consider to be completely a thrown away object and try to make it something personal and something precious. And then kind of what happens to you as you're thinking about this, in that space between the idea of things being thrown away and those things being precious, especially in this context. It really, I mean, I hope, and I think it does for me, it makes me think about a lot of different things, and I think that's the beauty of her work, is that you think about a lot of different things, and if you can be kind of open to it, there's a lot of dialogue that can happen with you and the work. And for me, I mean, obviously I'm extremely biased. I'm an artist, trained classically, and the chair of the department. But to me, that's what makes art so unique and necessary. And I always think about kind of the idea of censorship came up last week, and I think that the first thing that the Nazis did, and the first thing that any totalitarian regime does, is it goes in and it takes away the artists, and it subverts them. It makes them into something that they're not. It's oftentimes at the beck and call of those in charge. And traditionally, I'm going to go into a little history, but traditionally, artists were used by the church, the Orthodox Church, to convey a message, and there was a part of control there too. And those objects are beautiful. I love those. They're my favorite objects, Baroque and Renaissance reliquaries and art. I use them a lot, but you also have to understand the dynamics and the history behind it, and the element of control. And I think that's what this art and what all artists try and do. We try and control the message, and we try and push people in directions that they won't normally take. I have a saying on my door. It says, "Art is the lie that shows us the truth." And I think, to me, that's what we try and do daily. We try to manipulate in order to get people to realize what might be around them that they don't normally see. So I hope that didn't go on too long, but that's kind of the summary. I wanted to, I don't know if there's any questions. I don't know if I can answer anything too personal about the work or her work. And of course, this is my interpretation too as well. I mean, and I talked to her about that a little bit. I said, in your absence, what would you like me to address? And she said, well, part of the reason that I like that you're going to talk about it, because she liked it. I was thinking, oh my God, this is going to be kind of tough. I mean, I've known her for a while, but to talk about someone else's work and that personal connection, there's something that she can say, a lot of things she can say that I can't. But I think she was very intrigued by the idea of someone else talking about her work and imposing their own impression and interpretation of what the work is about. She really enjoyed that idea, and I guess I probably would enjoy it too.
You did a good job.
Is any other questions? Any questions? I really appreciate you all coming. I know it is cold, and for Miami, I'm from Chicago, so this is like, all my family's up there. I think it's like 17 right now and snowing. But I appreciate you coming. And there was one other thing I wanted to kind of relay. I know it's not related to the show, but tonight and this weekend, there's a show called the MIA International Art Fair. I don't know if some of you are familiar with it, but I know Dr. Cortez Suarez was good enough to pass around some things. I did bring a bunch of invitations. Tonight they're having the collector's special kind of review, and that it does allow you to get into the review. It also allows you to take two people into a regular time of the show, and it's going on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. If you're interested, you're an art lover, they're free, and I put them on the little table over there. So please feel free to take them. Try and maybe leave some for everybody. If you need to, after everybody makes a pass, grab another one if you need it. That's fine too. But I wanted to make sure you guys had that too, because if you like art and you're willing to come and bear listening to me, of course you should get something, right? All right. Thank you so much.